Hello all and welcome to episode 54 of the 3 for 1 Sky Fantasy Podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. My name is Fergi and I'm joined tonight by three of the most successful Sky managers in the game. Firstly, Paul McAnulty. Paul, how's the draft coming along?
Yeah, I've not made any changes to the draft this week. I thought I'd leave it closer to next week before I start tinkering a bit. But and I spent more time watching football. Scottish football started up again this week. Fans back in, so good result for Hibs today as well.
Cool. And for those who have commented about Paul's audio, he is literally holding his mic Murray Walker style up to his mouth. So we'll see if we can get some better audio from Paul this evening. We also have former Sky winner Dan Cox with us. Dan, have you calmed down now after my tweet completely disregarding you as any influence in my fantasy football career?
Well, I had, but now I'm not.
Now I'm fuming.
I just got to write a couple more notes down for later. What a disgrace! But we'll get to that later anyway.
I'm sure
in about 3 hours' time, we'll get to that.
I'm sure we will. And how's your draft coming along, Dan?
Like I said, so I've got a short list of I think I had about 60 players on it. I've got it down to about 40 odd now. So I ain't touched the team. I literally will wait till next Thursday, Friday. Well, maybe the Wednesday. I ain't changing. I'll just wait for the late. You know how it is. Everyone's, I'm going to have Van Dijk, and is he injured? Or going to have Dunk? Is he injured? Let's just wait till a couple of days before, find out if he's injured off a press conference, and then put him in rather than messing about, chopping and changing. So no, I've left them as they are, but I've just trimmed down my shortlist.
Superb. And tonight we also have a debutante for the 3 for 1 podcast. Firstly, before he says hello, does this nostalgic piece of music give you a clue of who it is at all? Yes, we're absolutely delighted to be joined by none other than the king of Sky podcasts, Mark Edworthy. Mark, your podcast was the go-to for all Sky managers for many years, including myself. Welcome. It's great to have you with us. How's it been going?
Yeah, good. You say it's the go-to. It was the only one.
The only
podcast.
Exactly, the only.
Pretty much. But yeah, it's been going well. Not so well in Sky the last season or so, but that's fine. That's fine. But it's generally been going well. And I'm looking forward to this season. Really looking forward to it.
Superb. And what is your initial reaction to this season's game in terms of price, etc.? I think last week our kind of thoughts were that the pricing looked a bit easier than kind of previous years. Is that your thoughts, or?
Yes, although I think it's still probably a bit harder than that one year where it looked really hard. Then they just dropped all the prices after everyone had made a team, which was just bizarre. I think that was last season or the season before. That was always fun. But yeah, it does look a bit easy. And I'm just hoping there isn't going to be a few gimmies chucked out there. Yeah. Suddenly it's like, oh, right, there's like a 6 million defender who's now suddenly playing first team for Liverpool or something like that. Because otherwise that could break it a bit. But there also is still a fair amount of premiums, and Man City is always going to be a question mark. Doesn't matter how many good assets there are. It's going to be, are they going to play? And then you got to see where your gambles come in. So as long as you make the right gambles, I think you're still going to be tricky enough, but still, you can still do well.
The question on everyone's lips is, are you going to be back doing any of your Sky podcasts, Mark? I missed that music.
Me too.
It's a hell of a track.
I almost cried then when you played it. I possibly might. What I might do is do some. We were discussing earlier about streaming directly onto Twitter and YouTube potentially. I don't even have a YouTube channel, so that would be a bit pointless because no one will see it. But putting stuff on Twitter, I might do some little ones. It's just trying to find the time with kids and stuff, and pretty knackered when it comes to the evening. But anything that basically doesn't involve editing, I'm up with.
And what about your draft, Mark? Are you fairly fixed? Have you started looking? Are you all over the place?
Probably a little bit of all three. A little bit A, a little bit of B, But I've generally picked a side and then haven't really touched it. Going on with what Dan said, it's sort of pointless. You're looking at this thing. Yeah, great. Let's put De Bruyne and Van Dijk, and it's like, yeah, they could be fine. They should be fine, but you don't know right now. And then I start taking them out, thinking, oh, he's not even played in the friendly. He's not going to be ready. So you might just wait till the press conference and he says, yes, they're brilliant. But what I have found, I've got 2 teams, and I've sort of made like the team I think I'm quite happy with that, and then made a bit of a punty team, and then over time, my initial team was basically just replicated my punty team because I started thinking, oh, I want them now.
Tends to do that, don't it? If someone's such a good pick, it's hard not to pick them in the other team as well, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of edge always towards. I'm a bit more of a gambler, as people probably know from my previous.
Well, FPL lad in the chat says Buff is bad at gambling, so I'm not sure.
He knows nothing. That guy knows nothing. I've taken him to Vegas, that guy, and rinsed him. He knows nothing.
Okay, it's great to have you on, Mark. Thank you so much for coming on, and really looking forward to hearing your insight throughout the show. So for any new watchers and listeners, you are very, very welcome. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and set the alerts so you don't miss our live streams, which are 9 p.m. every Sunday evening right here on this channel. Also, please press the like button if you haven't already, if you enjoy our content. For anyone who's brand new to Sky this season, we have a How to Play Sky Fantasy Guide link in the description below, which you will find very, very useful. So as we are live, please feel free to join the chat at any time. Let us know your thoughts on the topics or the relevant sections, and feel free to ask some questions throughout. We've got loads of people live with us. Good evening to Darren Molly, Thomas Bailey, Guy Wilcox, Sam C. I think Sam is the guy who's changed his shift so he can join us live. If it is Sam, absolute legend. Mike Chappell, Mark Daniels, Gary Mantle, Stiggy82, Tom Hart, Matt Williamson, Gary and Vincent, Steve Cheek. I could go on and on, but welcome one and welcome all. Absolutely fantastic to have you with us live this week. So last week we talked fixtures with fixture maestro Ian Parron. This week we're going to talk players as we deep dive into our favourite player picks position by position. We have a lot of questions to get through as well, and we will finish as usual with Dan's rant, which should be an interesting one this week after an interesting week on Twitter. So Paul has very kindly drawn up some stats graphics for tonight's show to aid the conversation. As we start off, Paul, are you able to understand what points per million per game is?
Yeah, so Sky provide the stats of points per million when you're selecting your players on the screen and partway through the season. But for me, it's not a fair assessment of players that have just come into a team. Like if it's second half of the season, they obviously halves their points because they wouldn't have been available in the first half of the games. It also detracts from being able to assess how good a player is that's been injured, perhaps a non-injury prone player as well. So last season we've seen Ndidi and Romeo, who a lot of us had at various points in the season, and trying to assess where their value sits across players when we're trying to use up our budget after we've picked our big hitters, we've picked our captaincies, where do we want to spread the rest of our money. So what I've done is just calculated points per million per game. So just total points from last season divided by the price that they are drafted up for this season, 21-22 season, and then divided by the number of games that they played in last season. So I've combined the starting 11 and subs appearances. I appreciate you probably could go with starting 11 if you wanted, but I made the decision to add those two together. And then, yeah, I don't know if Hub members on this stream will remember Carl Weeks used to do a weekly stats article on Sky, which I loved reading, and he did a measure very similar to this, and I think his magic number was 0.7. If any player came in above 0.7, he tried to get that player in straight away because they were offering the best value in the game when making up their first 11.
Fantastic, thank you, Paul. So I've accidentally left the one for goalkeepers off. I don't know how, but I managed to do that. But let's just start on keepers anyway. And what we're going to do, we're each just going to run through, our thoughts on keeper, right? So firstly, Dan, what are your thoughts on the goalkeepers in the game pre-overhaul?
So I've just written down the most owned keepers at the moment, the prices and the points they got last season. I ain't done a deep dive on these myself, and just looking at the when you're talking up to the overhaul. So these ones, so Martinez, the most owned, 20% of teams, 7.2 million. He got 231 points last season. I don't think you can go wrong with him. They've got a good set of games, haven't they? Do we just go through the list I got?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then Edison, he's 8 million, so he's a bit more. He's in 12.9% of teams, 222 points last season, so less than Martinez. Schmeichel, 7.1 million. He's in 12% of teams. He only got 168, so a good sort of 40 odd less, 50 odd less. Mendy, 7.6 million. He's only in 10% of teams, 187 points. Alisson, 7.8, not under 10%, 196 points. Sanchez of Brighton, interested, only 6.5 million, so he's a cheaper pick. He's only in 3% of teams, and he got 138 points last season. So, yes, almost 100 less than Martinez, but he's a bit cheap. You got way up with what you can do with that money. I don't think Brighton have got a bad set of fixtures, but with White going and Dunk having a toe injury and just coming back, I'm not so sure on Sanchez now. And he did go off yesterday after 45 minutes, but I think that was planned. There was a bit of a worry, I think, people seeing him getting treatment or whatever. So, but I think he's fine. Dean Henderson, led to believe he's going to be first choice for Manchester United, 7.2 million. So he's the same price as Martinez. He plays for Manchester United. He's only 1.72% of teams. Did only get 63 points last season, but he weren't playing all that much. And then Wolves, did go near a Wolves keeper, Sa, 6.7 in 0.4% of teams. But I think anyone who had Patricio last season over Martinez, I just think Martinez he just makes so many saves. Then he's just he's like a sky god last season.
Good stuff. And who is your kind of favourite pick at the moment, Dan? If you were, who's in your draft at the moment? Who's your main man?
Martinez, I think. I don't think you can go wrong. Like I said, Sanchez is 0.7 cheaper, but just paid like 7.2 million for Martinez. Nice fixtures. He's in 20% of teams. Just have him in, I think.
Mark, any other thoughts on keepers? I know it's not the most kind of exciting of categories. You got anyone else in mind?
It's really hard to go away from what Dan said. I think both of my draft teams have Martinez in goal. He's not still really in that premium bracket yet. He's got premium fixtures. He's a premium point getter, and he's shown that he can get points all over the shop. I can't ever suggest anyone other than him. The Sanchez shout is fair, although I think people are probably a little bit sweeter on Brighton's fixtures than I think they probably are. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know how much Meslier is. I've just looked because he does get a fair few saves, but you wouldn't pick him before because I know he's got not the best fixtures. So I can't get past Martinez if I'm honest.
That's fair enough. Paul, anyone else from you, or are you stuck on Martinez too?
Yeah, Martinez got a 0.9 million price hike, and yet he's still out in front in terms of points per million per game for last season, including with the new price. So I can't see me going for anyone other than him. Jordan Pickford, 7 million. Everyone's got nice fixtures to begin with. He gets saves bonus quite a lot as well. So, but he's only 0.2 saving as well. So I think if I was going for a budget saving, I'd maybe go Backman for Watford. I like their fixtures as well, but yeah, I don't think that I'll be moving away from Martinez.
Cool, yeah. The only ones on my list. So I had Alisson at 7.8. I just think in the keeper position, it's one of the only or few positions where maybe just spend an extra million can get you from kind of mediocre to premium. However, Martinez just isn't mediocre as he is, so it's just not worth it. And the only other player on my list was Foster. If you're looking to just spend very, very little in goal, I think Backman has attracted interest from Ajax, haven't he? So if he goes, Ben Foster will very, very likely start the season, I think, for Watford, and he's like 6.1. But again, just stretch and get Martinez right. It's a bit of a non-conversation, I think. So let's move on from keepers because they're not very exciting this season. Let's move on to the exciting defenders. And Mark, who has caught your eye in defence?
I mean, there's obviously all the key players. There's a load of premiums where everyone knows what they're going to deliver. There's like Trent, obviously, and Robbo for Liverpool, Diaz for City. Maguire isn't probably a bad shout. He's not actually that expensive, but you still don't know whether he's going to start the first game because he's still not back in training. So there's quite a lot of the premiums. You don't really need to talk about them. They're there. They can be selected. They're a good shout. What I have picked that I haven't really seen many other people picking, but I do have him in my team, is Cancelo, which isn't, it's not like he's a really great differential. He's a real great, no one knows about him. but I just don't think anyone's picking him because of Pep. However, he can get all bonuses. Well, everyone knows he can score goals as well. He gets assists, and he's been doing all the preseason. He's been playing all the friendlies, and I guess his main competition is Walker, who's still not back, and he's still probably ahead of Walker anyway. The big question with every single Man City player, all of us are going to talk about, is will he play all 3 games? And I think he's worth the punt. If he plays 2 out of 3, he's the sort of player that can get lots of bonus. So he would probably be one of my premium picks. Obviously, if you can stretch the Diaz, you've got a question there because, Diaz has got that guaranteed bonus and probably a bit more nailed. If you have a crystal ball and know exactly who's going to be partnering Diaz as well, definitely get him. So if it's Stones, he's great value. Laporte would be great value. And even Nathan Ake has been playing on the friendly, so he might even pop up for a game. So that's why I'm probably swerving that, especially pre-overhaul. So he'd probably be a premium pick for me, Cancelo. I think he's going to be slightly punty, but as long as he plays, I think he's going to get me points. The problem I see is the mid-range, so like the 8 million-ish sort of area, because you're looking at players that you're not quite sure about. Like Tierney, I think he's a great player, bit of an injury problem, and Arsenal haven't got the best free fixtures, so you're probably not going there. Then you've got a few of the Villa boys, which I have in my team right now. I quite like Matty Cash as a fullback. He gets tackle bonus, and he gets the odd assist and stuff, and Villa have great fixtures. But tackle bonus isn't as secure as passing bonus. And Mings isn't a bad shout, but he's not a big bonus haul. So he's not going to get that all the time. So you are reliant on clean sheets there. And then there's like the Dean, Lucas Dean. Everyone's been talking him up. I don't know how good Everton are going to be. Rafa, I suppose, is going to make them more defensive. Yeah, possibly. He's coming off a bit of an injury, but I think he's okay. But so he definitely could be a shout. He might be, he's feast or famine, that guy. He can suddenly get you 15 points or gets you -1 or something. So I think that mid-range is where if you get that punt and you get it right, you can make lots of points. But I'm not quite sure. Because the other ones in that sort of zone, like the Spurs fullbacks, Doherty and Reguilon, Nuno, you've got to wait and see for Spurs. I think they'll provide great value in the season, but you can't be sure any of them are going to play. Obviously, there's Keane as well. Some people like Keane. Everton should get passing bonus, I guess, because they don't have bad fixtures to start. But I've just got a big question mark over Everton. And Dunk, I think Dunk could be decent, but right now he's got a bit of an injury, so not sure. I guess then the other ones are the more budget, and there's a few. I mean, I know Brentford have just signed that guy from Celtic, I think it was. Adjar, is it? So he might be decent, but I can't see any because I've looked at not just for defenders, but for the whole thing, looking at all the promoted teams, which I pretty much do every season, thinking, okay, let's just filter it on who scored by average passes. And there's none that look like they're going to be, there's some touching the 60 zone, but that's in the Championship. I can't see any of them really making that passing bonus. I mean, when they play Newcastle, maybe, but so I'm not sure any of them can be relied for that, which means you're sort of selecting them A, because they're budget, and B, because they might get clean sheets. And Brentford have got a decent openings. I think they're playing Palace. I mean, they're start of Arsenal, but then Palace and Villa, which, isn't too bad. And Watford have got good games as well. And I don't know if Danny Rose is actually going to start. And if he is, everyone knows he's got something in him if he's fit and good. So you could find some, decent budget action in Watford, I reckon. But yeah, so that's sort of my, I say brief, it's probably a bit long, rundown of the defenders. But, I'm sure the other guys have got other things to add to that.
Great stuff, thank you, Mark. Paul, defenders, anything in addition to Mark?
Yeah, I like Rudiger. I think people put off by Chelsea's fixtures, but they can pick up passing bonus and clean sheets against anybody. They start off against Crystal Palace. Rudiger only played 19 games out of 38 last season, and they all came sort of in the latter parts of the season because he wasn't first choice. And I think there was talk about Lampard selling him at the start of the season, and then Tuchel came in. His points per million per game is 0.75. And if you think about how good Cancelo played, and factoring in only the games he played, Cancelo's is 0.76. So 0.01 difference between the two of them there. Rudiger's 9 million. I think he's going under the radar slightly. I've not seen many, if any, drafts being posted on Twitter.
I think he's nailed for me on overhaul, I think. But yeah.
But, well, the fixtures are Crystal Palace. I fancy him to get passing bonus against Arsenal as well. So even
Arsenal tend to sit back, don't they?
Yeah. So I think he could be a really good shout. A couple of, like, Joe Veltman comes just under Webster and Dunk in terms of value as well. What something I did notice was how low the Leicester guys come in. So Soyuncu and Fofana were really poor value based on their prices. I know that they've got nice fixtures and you expect them to potentially get passing bonus and get the 2 out of the 3 games for overhaul. But having a look at these stats kind of has put me off a little bit looking at that.
Cool. And Dan, anything else on defenders we've got your eye on?
All the ones sort of mentioned, really. I did see, forgive me who it was on Twitter who pointed out, they were talking about the Leicester defenders, the passing and stuff like that, but they said like Mings and Target got more than, I know they didn't play, but they got more points than them and not regularly getting that. So I don't know. But yeah, look, everyone you mentioned really got sort of on the short list.
Cool. Just in the chat, Gary-Ann Vincent says, changes Sanchez to Martinez. Mark Daniel says, the rest of United players are back tomorrow. And John Maloney, Cancelo's in his team. May captain him in game week 3 in one of my teams, and captain Antonio in the other. And Tom Hartnell is going for Diaz, playing it safe. So just to confirm, the points per million per game for defenders last season for our podcast listeners, John Stones, who we haven't mentioned yet, he came out on top. He's only 9.2 million and he had a points per million per game of 0.92, by far and away the highest, followed by Nats Phillips, 0.84, but you wouldn't expect him to start. Thiago Silva, 0.76. Cancelo again, 0.76. Zuma and Rudiger both on 0.75. Imagine one of them would have played the whole season. I think, Rudiger played half the games. If he'd have played the whole season, he would probably ended up second or third highest score in the whole game. Obviously, if he carried on, his passion in the clean sheets as well. Just a couple more I've got on the list. Soufal, I think, is quite nice at 8.1. West Ham obviously got really good fixtures. He's nailed on. Got the odd bonus for tackling as well, if I remember, last season. I've written Maguire down and mentioned, he may not start the first one, but I think he will. I think he's just, he's way too important for United for him not to play. I think he's 9.4. With Varane in there now, and the tails up and the good fixtures for United, and he's obviously got the goal threat as well. I think he hit passing a few times, so he's quite a decent one, I think, at 9.4. Mentioned him last week. Christensen starts, 8.3, very similar to kind of Rudiger, I think, in terms of passing. And I think if you're looking, for the cheapest of cheap, so if you're looking for the cheapest players in the game, potentially, who may get a start, Omaba Mideli for Norwich is 5.5 million. Wouldn't go there myself, obviously, but if you are looking to get out 10 really strong players, you just need a filler, he could be one. And Ben Johnson, I think, has started the last 2 friendlies at fullback for West Ham, and he's just 5.8 million as well. So maybe worth kind of monitoring him potentially, but they're the 2, cheapies who may, who kind of may get a start in the season. Let us know in the chat if there's anyone else in defenders that anyone fancies. So let's move on to midfielders. The points per million per game. Jesse Lingard came in. He was an 8.2 million last year. He had 16 starts and he had 0.91, by far and away the highest. But obviously, that's very much a form pick. He's back at Man United. Gundogan, the guy in third interests me. Harvey Barnes, because if you remember, just before he went off injured, he was absolutely on fire, basically scoring practically every game. And Michael Antonio, obviously class as striker now, came in 4th, and then Grealish, Bruno, and Rodri. Paul, what are your thoughts on midfielders? Massive category this season.
Yeah, so again, similar to Eddie, I'll focus more on the mid-price range. I think enough's been said about Bruno and De Bruyne in the past, and I think Bruno being the majority of people's teams, De Bruyne's, if people can move budget around, might go for him. But might be spending money elsewhere to get captaincy picks, etc. covered. So I still think, so on that list, Gundogan's second still. I think he's been overlooked in a lot of teams that I've seen flying about. I've not seen him in many, if any. 9.3. You expect him to start the first 3 games. 0.74 points per game per million, based on this year's price as well. So I think he's a really good pick. You mentioned Harvey Barnes there. I'd highlight him as well, Fergie. I think he could do really well. Fancy Leicester to revert back to sort of 4-3-3 formation. I could be wrong. They might change and sort of rotate between formations with playing 2 strikers. Riyad Mahrez been mentioned quite a lot. 9.8. I think he offers good value. He's played all pre-season friendlies as well. Højbjerg's had a bit of a bump in price, 8.1, but I still think he offers great value. Played every game last season, picked up 84 bonus points over the course of the season, which is very impressive. Wilfred Ndidi, 7.5. I think he offers great value. Wilfred Ndidi is one of those prime examples that if you use just points per million, that he would have flown under the radar, because he only played 26 games through that injury. It kept him out for 2 or 3 months, but he still comes just outside the top 10 for value for players, and very, very consistent. He's the type of player that I like filling my team with if I'm not looking for a captaincy pick. So if I'm trying to go with the crowd on who I think will be the most captained on the day, which I talk about, it's a tactic that I deploy quite a lot. I try and make up the rest of my team with players that are consistently stream points, because I know I probably won't be captaining them. And Didi fits that bill for me, and I think he's a bit better value than my boy Romeo from last season, whose price increase doesn't make him look as attractive anymore. And the other player I highlighted, I actually had a conversation with someone on Twitter earlier on about, was Thiago from Liverpool. 8.3 million, consistent bonus. He only played 24 games, 20 of which were starts last season, picked up 60 bonus as well, which is pretty impressive turnaround. And I think he'll start the season, especially if Henderson's not back or not fit from pre-season, having played part of England's exploits at the Euros.
Just on Henderson, I was looking on Who Scored earlier, and Henderson had the most attempted passes average per game of games he played in the whole league last season, which surprised me. He was 84.6 ahead of Diaz and whatever else. So Henderson himself 8.2. Understand your point. I don't think he played much, did he, in the Euros? But if he starts, because obviously Wijnaldum now has gone, that Liverpool midfield 3 you would assume would be Thiago, Fabinho, and Henderson. Potentially, there could be a lot of bonus in there, and Henderson 8.2 could be one. Just ticks over. He gets the odd attacking return. I think last season he only had 1 goal, 1 assist. Obviously, he was injured for a lot of it, but in the previous year he had a few attacking returns, if I remember. So Henderson could be a shout as well. Dan, midfielders, who have you got on your radar?
I'm struggling with the midfielders bit. Obviously, Bruno Fernandes. I think he's the only one I'd say he's definitely going to be in the team. And the others, whoever really, just can find another couple. It's hard with the start of the season with the players who would, I think, are not going to play in the first game week because of the Euros and stuff. But all the ones on Paul's list there, like they're all decent enough options, aren't they?
You definitely talk a lot more on your own podcast.
I'd be happy having any of them in the team, really. Like,
I may play.
They're all right.
Cool. And Mark, anyone else that Paul hasn't mentioned?
You did mention Buendia, who or Grealish, if you can group those two together at the moment. And I realised you sort of Grealish probably you might have grouped in that premium that you can definitely pick sort of zone, but obviously there's a whole question mark over when he goes to City whether he actually is better or worse value. But I think Grealish is at 9 million is probably going to be a lock in many teams, assuming he goes. And if he doesn't go, he also probably still might be a lock in many teams. But Buendia at like 7.9, I think is decent value. He's looking like he's settling in okay, friendlies and stuff. And the thing I like about him, because obviously they haven't quite signed Leon Bailey, but they're talking about it. And I know quite a lot of people are hot on him, but he's definitely this is one of the good things about Overhaul. He is definitely a wait and see for me. Bundesliga, he probably won't be just dropped straight in. While at least Buendia, he's had experience of both English football for ages and the Premier League, and he's quite creative. And I think at 7.9 million, he's a real decent option at that price point. So him, a lot of the others are obviously what you say before. There's always that classic zone around like the 8.3 where you can just pick up a passing bonus. I'm sure I don't even know how much Rodri is. I haven't even looked at the moment, but I'm sure he's around that zone, the 8.3 to 8.6 zone, and Fabinho as well. And it is definitely worth having the odd player like that. It's just trying to find, if you can, to try and find that one that, like the Romeo's, the 6.8 that does that. And I'm not sure any are standing out this side of the Overhaul. However, they might at the end. You might suddenly see, oh, he's just rattled in the tackles, and then passing and things like that. So I don't know, but Buendia, I think, is my choice that wasn't mentioned so far.
Yeah, I think I saw that he averaged the highest amount of tackles in the Championship last season per game. I think he's really good on passing as well, and obviously he gets goals and assists. So he's maybe got the makings, if he fits right in at Villa, of being a bit of an all round beast. So I quite like the look of Wendy, but as you say, it's that attack is going to look quite new, I think, and but Villa have got the fixtures in all fairness, so he could be an interesting one. He's a really good price.
No passing, mate. You don't get passing. He gets his tackles and shots. He's
shots.
But
shots,
I said last week he's a bit naughty for. He's had a few red cards.
Yeah.
He's he does get stuck in if he loses his head a bit, and he has had a few reds. That's the only problem with him.
The only ones that maybe caught my eye. So just in the chat, Tom Hartnell, Ward-Prowse being overlooked again. Ward-Prowse, 8.6 million, scored, I think it was 190 odd points last season. Absolute consistent beast, plays every minute of every game. So I completely agree with him. And John Maloney, Thiago Alcantara was a beast for bonus at the end of the season. Mark Dunn said Tielemans, who I know that Ian was quite hot on last season. In all fairness, bit of an all rounder there. Tielemans, I think he's 8.7 million, so he comes in good. Manchester, I know he has horrendous fixtures at Norwich, but Campbell could do well if he goes to Villa. Phil Speck says can't see Pepchuk and Grealish in week after week this season. Massive rotation risk if he goes, of course. A couple of the guys I've got on my list are coming out now in the chat. I'm gutted because I wanted to say him. Thomas Bailey says Allen for Everton. So if you remember, pre-overhaul last season, he was a beast. And Everton's fixtures are really, really good. 7.8 million. He smashed it pre-overhaul. Because if you remember, we were all kind of... I think he got injured. Did he get injured or did he get a red card in like the last game before overhaul? And we didn't end up going for him post-overhaul. But his tackles pre-overhaul, his passes, he was nailing it. So he could be a good option. And Steve Cheek has said the player who has interested me, Teller at Southampton. He's a 6.5 million midfielder. He's playing every game in pre-season and he's getting some goals and assists. So he could be a bit of a risk, but we could potentially for post overhaul have a 6.5 million young striker playing in midfield, which would be absolutely awesome.
That's perfect post overhaul, though, isn't it? Someone like that.
Exactly.
You don't want to risk it pre-overhaul. And to be honest, along with JWP, I'm just not sure how good Southampton are going to be. And they just look a bit rubbish. So I think I would just wait and see on them. They might just be awesome, but you don't even know if Ings is going to stay and all that sort. So.
Yeah. Well, if Ings doesn't stay, then it may even increase Teller's chances of some more starts, because you have to assume obviously that Ings and Adams are the starting sort of partnership. But yeah, no, he's definitely one to monitor. Other ones I had on my list, Dele Alli. Do you remember when Dele Alli was like 11 million a few seasons ago? About 4 seasons ago, absolute beast. He's 8.5 million now. And I noticed he captained the Spurs team in a friendly the other week, and he he played a couple of days ago, and he captained Spurs and he scored. And 8.5 million, if he gets back to anything like he was a few seasons ago, even like half or 2/3 of the points, he could definitely be one. But he's the same price as Højbjerg, and as Paul says, Højbjerg, he's guaranteed a few points nearly every game, and so he's a hard one to go for. Havertz picked out 9.5 million, so he scored earlier, playing up front against Arsenal. I don't know if anyone saw the goal, but it was very, very typical of what he was doing the final third of last season, where Werner was bursting through down the left-hand side, just squared her across, and Werner, it was a really good finish, but he was definitely playing in that really attacking role. So I think they've got a really good opening fixture against Palace, then a difficult 2, but just over the season, I think Havertz a 9.5 again. He could be kind of out of position striker playing for a team that could be going for the league, so he could definitely be one. Who else on my list? It said Henderson. If Matthias Pereira goes to West Ham, which looks like he may be, I think he could be an absolute beast, and also heighten the appeal of Antonio as well. So I think I saw a few hours ago that Pereira's agreed terms or agreed to move to West Ham. So at the end of last season, he was the second most creative player in the Premier League in the final quarter of the whole season. Bear in mind, they went down. He goes to West Ham, he could be fantastic, and as I say, increase the appeal of other players as well potentially. Stiggy82 says Havertz as well. He likes Havertz. Mark Williamson says Oliver Skip. He is cheap. I'm not sure if he's gone back to Spurs or not, because he was there on loan, wasn't he? And Mark Daniel says Tony has had 27 yellows and 2 reds in the last 3 years. Yeah, he knows how to put his foot in as well. Steve Cheek says, I have Ben Rama in my squad at the moment, 7.8. I think you'll start for West Ham, and good fixtures first 3. And Thomas Bailey, and there was someone earlier up said about, I can't say his name, Buemo for Brentford. He looked really good. He scored against Man United in a friendly the other day, but apparently doesn't tend to play a full game is the only thing. Have any of you guys had any eyes on him at all? Have you seen him play?
I had a look, and I quite like him. The problem is I can't get away from, which we'll get into in a minute, but Tony's going to be high owned. He's going to be probably high captaincy, and I just don't want to be basically already chasing after day one. I think Buemo is not a bad shout, and if you have a risk appetite, or you think actually I definitely want these 3 strikers, I don't know, Salah, Kane, and Antonio or whatever, and I can't fit Tony in, I'm not doing it. He's not a bad shout as an enabler, but there's still a bit around that's risky. He's only going to get you points for goals and assists, I think. And it's whether he plays all the time, and it's a bit of a risk. But I think if you're up for a risk, he's not a bad shout.
And the only other one I had on my list, again, just if you've got 10 really strong players, you've got a bit of change, you just want someone. So I noticed that Moda played again last night for Brighton. So he started the last 4 games of last season. He looks to be in their team at the moment. Jacob Moda, 5.6 million, one of the cheapest players in the game. If you're desperate, he could be your man to fill your gap there as well. So moving on to the forwards then, and unsurprisingly, Harry Kane had the highest points per million per game after his incredible season last season, 0.69. Callum Wilson and Patrick Bamford were just behind him. Jamie Vardy had 0.6, and then Ollie Watkins, Danny Ings, and Calvert-Lewin. But all of these, every single striker was under 0.7, Paul, which was your kind of magic number, which is interesting. It's the captaincy for strikers, the thing, is it? This is the thing in Sky compared to a game like the Telegraph. Is the captaincy is a bit of a killer. Forwards then, over to you. Let loose.
Right. So again, I've just gone on the ownership. So the most picked, Salah, points last season. Harry Kane, the second most selected, 37%. Whether it's true or not, but I've seen that he's not expected to start the first week, whether they play Man City or if he's at Man City and play Spurs. Do you know what I mean? I'm surprised he's in that many teams, really. And again, he played with England in the final, 3-4 weeks ago. So will he, he's not expected to start, is he? So I'm surprised he's in that many teams. He got 290 points last season. Bamford, he's had a price rise, 9.5. He's in 16% of teams. 234 points last season. Was pretty good last season. Ollie Watkins, 9.2 million, 15.6% of teams. I think he's probably a good option from the start. I hadn't seen him in many teams. 201 points last season. Probably should have had a bit more than that, really. Tony, 7.9 million in 14% of teams. He's actually gone down. I said on my little pod, he's gone down. I think it's because when the game first opened, it was all just us diehards that were picking teams and saw that first game and thought, we'll have a Brentford player. So I think he's dropping down now because you less engaged persons picked a team and stuck Salah and Kane in. Do you know what I mean? And not really looked at the fixtures. Calvert-Lewin, 10 million price rise in 11% of teams. He got 195 points last season. Then Son, 10.8 million in 10% of teams. 212 points last season. Again, if Kane goes, or is he now going to be the main man and get more points, or is he going to struggle without Kane? I don't know. Vardy, 10.6 in 9% of teams, 216 points last season. He's I hate Vardy because he's one of the players who I bring him in, he doesn't do anything. I don't have him. He scores 2-3 hat-tricks against Man City and that sort of stuff. And the last one on my list, Antonio, 8.8 million, moved from midfielder to a striker. 9.5% of teams and 154 points last season. But we know what he's like with injuries. But such a good tempting price, isn't he? I think it was what Paulie said last season. If he obviously didn't have the injuries, he'd probably be 11 mil, wouldn't he?
His fixtures are fantastic as well, aren't they, Antonio's? And he's a captain option in one of them as well.
I think you could captain him 3 times if he's fit for all of them.
Yeah, especially as I say, if they get their signing in Pereira as well, it only heightens the appeal. And West Ham are good. He looks. It's just his injuries, but then because we've got the overhaul, even if he plays 2, gets injured, and he gets a goal in your captaincy game you're picking for, then he's done his job down, as you said last week, haven't he?
Yep.
I got a question in the chat. Bamford, is he worth 9.5 million? For me, probably he's a post-overall pick, purely because nothing other than he doesn't really fall well on a captaincy day. We looked last week at the fixtures, and captaincies are probably driving a lot of our decisions in terms of choices as well. The only other one I wanted to ask was, no one seems to be mentioning Aubameyang in that opening day against Brentford. I know Arsenal were awful last season. The final quarter of the season, they actually turned the corner. They played quite well, I thought. Have any of you guys kind of thought of Aubameyang, or is that just is that just me talking absolute garbage?
That's you talking absolute garbage, Andy.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate
it.
No, I think if your whole team had to be strikers, then definitely maybe. But the problem is, as Dan just said, Antonio is such a nice price, and he's got captaincy. So I think he's nailed in. You're not going to not go Salah, which means you've only got that one slot, and anyone who's filling that one slot with Aubameyang probably needs to work out what they're doing personally. But yeah. The thing is, an Arsenal player is going to... The problem is they've got such bad fixtures after that game because they're playing... are they playing Chelsea and City, aren't they? I can't actually remember now, but they've got 2 not good games. Otherwise, there'd be a lot more talk about an Arsenal player. But those people that punt for that Arsenal guy, like Pepe as well, people have been bigging him up. He's too big a risk for me, and I take risks, and he's just too big. But like even at centre halves, they'll be getting bonuses. Like Ben White's really cheap. No one's really still, even though he's moved there now, no one's still talking about him. I know he's been with England, but he didn't play a lot. He'll probably still drop in. Guaranteed passing bonus probably. But it's just Arsenal. It's just Arsenal.
He made a block off the line earlier in a friendly, and the headline was, Ben White starts to pay off part of his 50 million fee. It's like, what, a block off the line of friendly, which in the game they lost. It's like, come on.
What about start of Aubameyang on the Friday and then whip him out on Saturday for Salah or someone like that?
After a fast start, if you're playing like a hair game, innit, where you're trying to just make
get a goal or 2 against Brentford. Everyone's got Tony who doesn't do anything.
You'd be low owned.
Goal or 2 there, it'd be a lovely job. But
it would be.
That's a thought.
Whenever I do things like that, though, it always just it always just kills me. And it's like, oh, he's got booked and it's 1 point, and everyone else has got points, and I've wasted a transfer because I've got some absolute donkey in my team who I thought was just a great idea at the time. That's what always happens.
A couple of shouts in the chat. Manchester says Cavani, nice fixtures, and yeah, he's I think he's 10.1. I did have him on my list. I think he's going under the radar a little bit, but again, I think it's because you've got Bruno as as the United option, and it's also his price point, same as Aubameyang. It's just that kind of awkward, the price point as well. Paul, in terms of strikers, have you thought of Cavani, or have you got anyone else on your list?
I think the format of the Sky game picks a lot of people's front lines because of the overhaul. So we've talked about, it's like most people's going to go with Salah, I would have thought. Antonio because of the captaincy, and then I don't want Ivan Toney in my team. I think that there's potentially better value out there, like Callum Wilson. I think Ollie Watkins will do well before the overhaul, but because he's going to be captained by the highest percentage of people on the Friday night, and I don't like. Yeah, it's not a brilliant fixture, but all he needs is a penalty, right? And then that's what, and a potential man of the match, and then we're talking 24, 26 points, captain, what would be 24? Yeah, so...
Not as bad as Salah on the Saturday, the first game of last season, mine, Paul, was it?
Yeah. But, well, you learn lessons with Fergi.
You do, absolutely.
And I think that's a lesson learned. I would rather
100%.
not try and make any moves in overhaul, like pre-overhaul, and then try to start play my own game a little bit afterwards. I think just stay with the pack.
Yeah, I think we we had similar-ish teams, all three of we, and I think we went into the first overhaul ranked something like after the first weekend we were like 100, like 100k. I think we went to the overhaul 30k. You would hope if we follow the crowd, just end up with a reasonable rank going to the overhaul, and then properly start kind of making the differences then as we go through from there. Any other strikers, Paul, at all in your thoughts?
Now, Wilson, Bamford, Watkins, Calvert-Lewin were the ones on top of the kind of three main ones that we talked about there that I'd highlighted. But that's not news to anybody, I don't think. It's
the striker's a bit of a boring one, I think. Mark, any more from you on the striker list?
Sort of. There's a couple of things. One, and please throw this away, and I know there's no editing, but we probably should edit out what I'm about to say. But Mateta is dirt cheap. I realise you don't want a Palace striker in those first three games, but I just thought I'd highlight that because he is possibly one of the cheapest strikers. Not super cheap, but he's a cheap striker who, in theory, should be playing. And Palace look like they're going to be a bit more expansive this season under Vieira, so he's one to keep an eye out. Definitely not pre-overhaul, but just a thing. But what? Going back to what we were saying about Aubameyang, for those who are in that punty zone, what you could do is bring Aubameyang in to start, and then transfer him out after Arsenal play Chelsea. So you get that London derby. You never know, he might do something for Vardy, and then you get the two nicer fixtures for Vardy. So it's those two players that are probably the Achilles heel of many of us. I seem to always miss both of their points, so I'm definitely not doing that. But the fact I'm not doing that probably means that it's a good idea. But there's loads of stuff like that. You could do it for Antonio, but the problem is then you'd miss the Newcastle Antonio game, which you just don't want to do. So there's a few options there. So if someone did want to do that, I don't think it's the worst idea, but I don't think I'd want to hold Aubameyang for the whole three. Otherwise, strikers wise, I think it's pretty much covered.
I think I might do it on my second team. Just and Stiggy just put in the chat. Is it only me that thinks Arsenal will destroy Brentford in that first game? I'm not sure they'll, I'm sure destroy him, but it's going to be hard for Brentford to keep a clean sheet. And if Arsenal score, Aubameyang, he's reasonably. He scored his first hat trick towards the end of last season, didn't he? And I'm thinking of doing it on my second team. That whole, Aubameyang to Salah, just for something different. Maybe keep the the vast majority of the team the same, but just go for it on that one night. Anyway.
That's one of the benefits of having two teams, right? You could do stuff like that. In fact, I can feel myself talking myself into doing this my second team.
You just said 5 minutes ago, I said, Ian Aubameyang, and you went, no, you're mad.
No. Just to clarify, not then with the transfer, I sort of thought, well, maybe. Yeah. It was more the Aubameyang for the first three that you're mad, because, So, it's obviously going to be amazing. Aubameyang to start, captain that game, gets a hat-trick, then plays against Chelsea, gets a goal. You're not captain then you sub-map for Vardy, who then plays Norwich and some other rubbish team.
At the moment, I've got like 1.3 million left in the bank, so I could definitely potentially do an upgrade there and get in. I think I might do that in my second team. The only other player on my list out of is the strikers are quite bare, I think, at the moment. Pre-overhaul anyway, we'll obviously have a lot more of an open conversation when it comes to overhaul time. But Pookie at 7.7, if anyone is worried about Tony and you're stuck with him, I just think he's... we've got the overhaul anyway. You can just ignore the Pookie shout. I think Pookie's fixtures improved from Gameweek 4 or 5, but that's post overhaul anyway. I wrote down Daka 8.5. Obviously not going to start with Daka, but again, maybe one to look out for Leicester, because his previous record is absolutely fantastic.
Jimenez scored just within a friendly.
Yes, Jimenez is back as well.
Which was good to see. And he's had I think he was 10 points something last season. He's down to 9 now. And
Wolves fixtures from game week 4, I think, isn't it? So right after the overhaul, Wolves fixtures turn really, really nice. So he could be one to keep an eye on as well. Fantastic, thank you.
That Daka shout, he scored as well in the friendly. He looked pretty rapid, which is always a good thing, I think. What did people think about? I say people, I mean you guys, about like Nacho and Vardy. I mean, we just talked about Vardy briefly there. Who do we think starting that? Because also you talked about Barnes in the 4-3-3, and then who's going to be playing those games up top for Leicester? Because they got decent games, and in theory they're still one of the top 6 teams. So and they should get goals. I'm just trying to work out who actually is going to be playing up front for them.
I think Evans isn't fit just now, which makes me think they'll go 4 at the back as opposed to 5. Which would lend probably to playing 4-3-3 as opposed to that 3-5-2 system that they were playing at the tail end of last season. That's kind of what's put me off in the actual, and I think he might play Vardy kind of through the middle on his own.
I just can't see how he can bench Iheanacho at the end of last season. He was, he was the form striker in the whole league. I just can't see how he can put him on the bench. I think you'll find a way of playing them both personally.
Vardy's getting on though, isn't he now? And they're in Europa League, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yeah, but that's after overhaul, isn't it?
Yeah, whether someone will play. There's enough games for them all to be playing. But I just think between them 3 we mentioned, I think they're all going to see a bit of time and just rotate him a bit. Daka's just coming in, and Vardy's getting older, and I just think there'll be a bit of rotation.
Can Daka play in like one of the wide of a 4-3-3? I sort of hope, assume he can. But because otherwise, if they just bought an out-and-out centre striker, that seems a bit silly when they've got 3 of them if they're going to play 4-3-3. But I don't know. And
just on Harvey Barnes, I said, I think Harvey Barnes will be a really good, he'll have a really good season, but I'm not sure, we can expect him to kind of fly out the blocks in game week 1 after the injury he had. It took him time to get into the season last season. He didn't really start, really performing until after Christmas. Probably, a post overhaul one for me as well there, Harvey Barnes, I think. Anyone else in the strikers, Jamie? I don't think so. Stiggy says he might go Laka for that first game and transfer him out for Salah. I had a bad experience with Lacazette last season. It's a very, very brave pick. We get to see the lineups. So it doesn't, it doesn't really matter. And Tom Hartnell says, I'm not sure they'll win, but don't think Brentford are getting spanked. Anyone else, gents, at all? I suppose, in any position at the moment that we haven't mentioned that you've got on your list that you would like to bring to the party or bring to the fore?
Just thinking about it, I didn't mention, because I don't like him really, because everyone on Twitter is going a bit mad for him. But that 8 Nori guy is only like 6.7 million for Wolves. Again, they don't have the greatest fixtures to start. But when it comes to game week 4, and we don't want to obviously talk too much about the overhaul now because there'll be a whole load of podcasts. But even pre-overhaul, if he's that cheap, he could be a shout if he's supposed to be playing basically left wing. I personally think I'm going to wait and see about that. But him, and I guess even Kilman, who's in there as well, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how Wolves are going to line up. This new manager, it's like Spurs a bit. Nuno, you just don't know, do you?
He
like,
was mega cheap last year. He was a bargain for about a month, only over Christmas or something like that, was he?
Yeah. Yeah, there's always one, and you think, oh yeah, he's great, and then just disappears off the face of the planet. Yeah,
we mentioned him last week, but Sarr from Watford as well.
Oh yes,
a good shout for that.
Yes, he was on my list.
Second or third midfielder slot.
Yeah,
I think he takes penalties as well when Deeney's not on the pitch.
The guys in the chat are asking about Mason Greenwood. Has anyone got any excitement? For me, he's probably in the same camp as Jota a little bit in terms of you probably want nailed on players. Probably, I think it's enough with the fixtures to probably have your the cornerstones of your team in players like Salah and Bruno and Martinez, wherever else, and then just fill the rest with captaincy options and bonus magnets. But any love for Greenwood or Jota or anyone else of that ilk?
Seems like an FPL pick for me.
Yeah, that's the thing with the bench as well, and in Sky there's no bench. Any love from you, Mark?
Not particularly. I mean, I was basically going to echo what Dan said. In other games, talking FPL mainly, you get that bench and there's a bit of added security if he just doesn't show up. But I think in Sky, it's not. I think it's even worse than things like the Telegraph because you need to fill those gaps with those people that can pick up captaincy. So there just isn't the space for someone who you're not sure is going to play. It's fine to maybe have one punt, but if you're punting, you need to be punting on someone who's like, okay, if he does like the Cancelo thing, I don't think it's that big a punt. I think he's going to play at least 2 of those games, and I think in those 2 he's going to get enough points that lots of 3-player game people could get. But you can't pick players that who might literally be sat on the bench for 3 games in a row, especially pre-overhaul. He smells like a post-overhaul pick. I mean, the fact Rashford's out gives you a little bit more, but you need to wait for that, I think.
Is he classed? Sorry, I haven't even looked. Is he classed as a forward as well? Because if he's
8.9,
if he's a forward, there's the front lines are pretty set, I think, and they with probably there's a pool of 4 or 5 players who we're kind of choosing from in that one. Just to run through the current overall ownership. So I took this morning from FF Stuff. Thank you so much, as usual, Frank. So at the moment, Bruno is the highest owned player, 39% owned. Salah also 39%. Grealish 38.89. He's very, very highly owned. Grealish, the same as FPL actually. He's very highly owned in FPL as well. Harry Kane 37.61. So those top 4 there, all within a couple of percent of each other, and they're in over a third of all teams. Then got De Bruyne at 26.6. Luke Shaw is in 20. We haven't mentioned Luke Shaw at 9 million. I'm assuming we all think that potentially he's he may miss the first game or so, but 9 million. Martinez, surprisingly for me, is only in 20% of teams at the moment. I thought would have been higher. Maguire at 19.5. Mason Mount is quite high as well, the same as in FPL. I think with maybe with players like Mount and Grealish, he may be a bit more of a casual pick for players who are just thinking of who do well for England and stuff. Maybe Ruben Dias, last season's absolute darling, who Liam picked out really, really early, is 19%, and then you've got Saka, Trent, Foden, Bamford, and a few others then under 15%. And just then, in terms of looking at ownership, in terms of teams, again from FF Stuff, Man City have got an effective ownership of 133%. So quite a lot of ownership, and it's interesting because I think between a lot of us, we've maybe only got one, I would guess. I'll tell you who we didn't mention at all, and Mark, I saw you mention him on Twitter, was Mahrez. Do you fancy Mahrez?
I do fancy Mahrez. He's so attractive and he's got lovely hair.
He's got lovely hair.
Yeah, he does. But yes, I do. In my head, I'm debating about whether he's my main team pick or whether he's my slightly punty team pick. He seems to basically rotate into both at certain points. I mean, what everyone needs is someone who's done a bit of research really deep down and thought, okay, all these players played loads of pre-season, but then all these other players came back and Pep or whatever team you're looking at suddenly went, oh yeah, but then he just said, screw you, you played all the friendlies, that's fine, but these guys are my main guys, they can pick it up. So he's played all the friendlies, he's scored. I mean, I hear people talking about him being on pens. anyone who watched that Liverpool game when it was like 0-0 in the 84th minute and he could have just won the game and just completely hit it out the stadium, I can't see Mahrez actually being on pens, but I may be wrong about that. But I still think he's an awesome player, and he's that great type of fantasy footballer that he's a bit greedy, and greed is good for us because greed equals points. As long as it's not too greedy, and then that equals being dropped, because then that's very bad for us, especially pre-overhaul. So I think he will definitely be in one of my teams. I just need to work out whether he's a mainstay, he's in my main team, or whether he's a slight punt. I mean, it all comes down to this pep roulette thing, and who can you trust? The problem is, Man City is so good, you need to have some sort of coverage there, because as I say, 2 games from Mahrez is probably as good as 3 from 90% of the other midfielders.
I agree.
I think with Mahrez is that I want a City player to captain on the 3rd game week. So on Saturday, the 28th of August, the 12:30 kickoffs, Man City against Arsenal. So I want to make sure that whatever City player I've got is captainable and therefore obviously starts. And I don't know, outside of kind of Diaz, Gundogan and KDB, I would have thought were probably the 3 most nailed. That was kind of my preference. The more moves to Diaz, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely a kind of potentially a feast, a feast or famine sort of pick and eat. But the fact that you get to see the team actually, on the Saturday will if you had him in your team, it would help a captaincy decision as well, wouldn't it? Because if he was playing the second game, you would just be crossing your legs for a couple of hours, wouldn't you? A bit scared. Just while I'm on it, there's a player I forgot to mention as well was Konate at Liverpool. I don't know if you guys have seen like a photo of him. He's an absolute giant. He looks like an absolute
7
beast.
foot, isn't
he? He's massive. He's 8.8 million, and he's currently in my draft. More of a like a placeholder than a certain starter. But strikes me that if he does start, I just can't see Van Dijk personally starting and playing all 3. So I do think he will play. 8.8 million. You'd thought he'd get the passing. The defense historically pretty decent. Fixtures are quite good. Have any of you thought of him at all, or is he just too much of a risk for game week 1?
I had him in my draft, but recently taken him out just because I just don't know where he's going to play. Yeah. I mean, I keep hearing people saying, yeah, the centre-back partnership we're going to the first game is Konate and Matip. And I'm thinking, all right. But then, then everyone else is saying, hey, Van Dijk's back with Gomez. This is awesome. And all that is awesome. It's just a case of, is he going to play? I think realistically, is it going to be Konate VVD as first choice, or is Gomez? I think it probably will. So in theory, even seeing Konate is probably going to be fitter than Gomez due to injury, he probably is a real good shout. And as you say, 8.8 million, he'll get passing bonus 90% of the games, I guess. I don't know how if he is like a giant at 12 foot tall, whatever Dan said he was, he probably is going to get the odd header goal as well. You do expect. So I think he's probably going to be in one punt team, and I think he's a good shout. It's just whether he's definitely going to start at least 2 of those 3 at the start. That's another press conference job, I think.
I think he only scored. I think he scored 5 games in, I want to say 90 odd appearances for Leipzig. So he hasn't got an incredible record. But saying that, 1 in 20 for a centre back, it's not the worst. It's not the worst thing. Just overall percent owned by teams. So Manchester City 133%, Man United 125.8%. So everyone's the vast majority have got over 1 player from Man United. Same for Villa 117, Liverpool 114. Then we've got Chelsea at 91.9, Leeds at 73. So looking right down the bottom, Watford, only 8% of teams have got a Watford player. 11% for Palace, 11.7% for Norwich, and 13% for Burnley. So just in terms, kind of looking at what the template may potentially look like, looks like, 1.3 Man City players. Grealish obviously higher than that, De Bruyne as well, probably Diaz, things as well. But it's just interesting to kind of understand, what the template may look like. So on to questions, and thank you so much for everyone who has sent in some questions. Auto Reclose, I asked this earlier, how come Dan Cox has a more professional voice on his own videos than on here? Can you answer that, Dan?
No, I don't know really. I don't know really. I thought I'd better do that proper. My kids are going to watch that, aren't they? And it's just all down to me, isn't it? So, yeah, you talk about the Sky Bite Size YouTube, yeah?
That's the one, mate. So if anyone hasn't seen it, Dan Cox channel, Sky Bite Size. Dan gives 10-minute bite-size YouTube videos on his thoughts. So make sure you subscribe.
Just thought I'd start it up. I did put a little something out there because I think a few people worried I've been sacked from this. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, I ain't been sacked. I just thought I'd just do a little side project, like the musicians do. I'm not like left Little Mix or anything.
It's Freddie Mercury.
Just done a few solo songs or something. I'm still in.
Lee Williams asks, I don't know if it's too late, but does Xhaka interest you if he starts passing bonus or title bonus? I thought Xhaka was leaving, but I saw he did score earlier, didn't he? Is he does anyone know the status of Xhaka? Because he was, he's quite decent, wasn't he? He's staying.
They'll pay him a wedge and he'll stay.
Yeah, he I think he was going, I want to say Roma, but it was Italy somewhere, and then
Roma.
It didn't come out. And in answer to the question, I saw that, and I've been thinking about that, because that's the best thing I get to do is think about Xhaka. This is good for the overhaul. The fact is, it's actually a really sensible question. So whoever asked that obviously really knows the game, because Xhaka can get passing bonus. He's dropped off on tackles recently. I remember looking at him last season. I thought, oh, he's not as good at tackles, but still, he is a sort of player that can get bonus. So he's a good pick sometimes. But the fact is, pre-overhaul, he's got that game against Chelsea and the game against City. He won't pick up the passing bonus against those two, I wouldn't have thought.
You might get the tackle bonus, but he'd get booked as well, wouldn't he? That's a problem.
Possibly, exactly. So he's definitely don't pick him pre-overhaul, but do keep in mind for post-overhaul if he's playing. However, the bottom line, I think, if they were willing to let him go, and it seemed that they probably were, he's probably not going to be a nailed-on number one choice for Arsenal. So that also is going to make him a no-go. But either way, the fixtures don't allow him to be picked pre-overhaul anyway.
7.5 million, he could be a really nice pick-up overhaul. And Uncle Bob, Thomas Partey got injured again today and could be out for a while. So that may kind of force another stay of execution. Paul, question for you off FPL Heavyweight and Sky FF. Best 7 to 9 million midfielder options. He's on Bruno indeed. He's not showing his third. Thinking about Maddison or Buendia. Who would your kind of nailed on third midfielder be in that bracket at the moment?
Buendia's good. Højbjerg 8.1 is good.
I thought Højbjerg was 8.5. Am I going mad?
I think he's 8.1.
I thought he was 8.5.
So I downloaded Frank's price list the other day, so I was actually looking on. I trust FF stuff more than I trust the Sky website. So
I think Højbjerg. I think he might have been 8.1 maybe last season. I'm sure he's 8.5. Anyway, Højbjerg, yeah.
He was 7 point something. He was 7.1.
He's 8.1, yeah.
Oh Christ! Anyway, I've typed it wrong.
Well, you were doubting.
Never. I've doubted you, Paul. There we go.
Well, I can't copy and paste it. No, Højbjerg 8.1. I'd mentioned Thiago 8.3, but something a bit different. But yeah, those. We haven't mentioned Rafinha, probably again because it leads his poor fixtures pre-overhaul.
Because he's in everyone's FPL team, but he's in no one's Sky team.
Yeah, he didn't score big against any of the big clubs last season either.
I think he did okay against United, didn't he? Didn't get a couple of assists against United, maybe. I think he did.
But yeah, so
I'm doubting you again, Paul.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. You'll be right. We know that. Tom Sky FF, looks like the Brighton duo of Dunk and Webster are a bit of a risk. Who would you guys suggest as alternatives? Ideally, players that would score bonus. So Dan, who have you got in that kind of category? The 7 to 8 millions. Is there anyone you've got in your draft at the moment?
I've been thinking about just Mings, Concert, Target, someone like that. I know they're not for bonus, but they can pick up a couple of clean sheets or whatever. It's just it's only 3 games. Yeah, I wouldn't have them for a long chunk of time, but could work. And it's sticking a couple of them with Martinez. You got a semi-Villa block. two clean sheets, you'd be buzzing.
You're basically telling them my team now, Dan. That's just that's not good, is it? Yeah. Oh, but you didn't mention Matty Cash. Matty Cash is the man. He loves to tackle, does Matty Cash.
Yeah.
Ogbono as well might not be a bad shout because West Ham have got great fixtures, and basically whenever I look at fixtures and passing bonus, I always look for Newcastle. And I did always look for Palace, but I need to see how they go with Vieira in terms of their centre halves might get bonus, even though West Ham aren't super possession and super bonusy. Newcastle are normally just give bonus out as presents to everybody. So that's why I was thinking Ogbono might not be a bad shout, especially if you didn't have someone like Antonio, because in case you need a captain in that first game, which is a bit weird. But so I thought, yeah, him potentially, or I guess Creswell isn't a bad shout. He's not going to get the passing bonus, but I guess he's still going to be their first choice free kick taker and left back. So he's left back in the air.
I think he's been playing on the left side of a back three more recently. So maybe not, kind of like flying at the wing as such, but he's definitely on, corners and free kicks and stuff. So
I don't think he's overly expensive. I think he's 8.1. I think that's just from memory. I'm sure Paul will completely correct me in a minute. But yeah, the other one I noticed, again, I don't want to talk about because it's not really going to be relevant pre-overhaul, is that Firpo guy for Leeds.
Yeah.
So he's like 7.5, I think, and he's supposed to be very attacking and pretty decent. So I'm sort of thinking, yeah, he might be a shout, but again, it's probably going to be a post-overhaul, even though I reckon he might tear it up. So I think I'm expecting to see him in a few drafts.
He got an assist yesterday, didn't he? He crossed in for Bamford yesterday. Looked good. Question for you, Mark, because I think we already kind of know Paul's and Dan's and my answer on this, but is it worth going for a player, a differential for the pre-overhaul team, or do you just stick with the Twitter template? How do you generally play the game? Do you just play it safe, or do you try and chuck in the odd Mahrez or Havertz or someone like that?
I don't play it safe. The problem is that's normally detrimental as opposed to good. I do find that, 50% of the time, though, it is like a real good thing, and 50% of the time it is just like terrible. It depends on your appetite for risk. What I try and do, which doesn't always happen, but what I try and do is think, look, I want a slot where I can make a punt. At least then I've made my punt and my head thinks, yeah, there's a punt, that's fine. And the fact is, the good thing about Sky is the formation moves. So if you think, right, okay, I've got like 8 million and I've got a 3-3-3 at the moment, right, that 8 million I can use on a punt. What can I afford for that money? And then as long as you've got your captains covered, or even if you don't have your captains covered, you can sort of use it in one of those captain games that are not cool. But what you don't want to do is take a punt like having a Aubameyang for but you don't want to take a punt like in a game where Salah is going to be mega captained and suddenly think, actually, I might go Mane, because like we talked about earlier, I think just staying with the pack is probably the best shout pre-overhaul. I mean, Mane could rip it up. I actually picked Mane last season when he had that purple patch over Salah. It was like, oh, this is great. It was probably a little bit too little too late, but still. So he could be great, but it's just not worth that risk. So just having a slot where you can have a punt, which doesn't mean a lot, but if you just get that one right, I mean, mine is probably that Cancelo spot. It's not like a cheap spot, but I think he's a real good punt for me. But he's got solid backing as well. You don't want to just pick someone who's like, you got a 10% chance he's going to do it, 90% chance he's going to be rubbish. You sort of still want solid backing as well.
Eddie, you captained Johnny Evans last season when he scored the goal. Everyone was on in the actual, didn't you? You got a second ball from that, yeah. Yeah,
that was good. It's quite funny. It's a bit like my golf. Because I played golf today, and it's like anyone who's played golf will know. I'm sure you've all played and you all do it. You hit this amazing shot, and it's like, this is the best feeling in the world. I've just hit like a 150-yard shot and onto the green, and then you just like 4-putt or something ridiculous like that, and it's just like, this is the worst feeling in the world. And it's one of those, you sort of need to make sure you just get that good feeling when you get that bad one. And to be fair, to do that, you need that solid backing. You need to make sure you've got the heavy ownership and you got all that. It's just when you get that opportunity where you think, actually, I know I'm taking a slight risk, but it's educated. I understand it. It makes sense. It's just making sure you do that at the right times. And So that's so, and to be fair, there is opportunity pre-overhaul to do things like that. So it's just making sure you don't do something silly like not picking a player that's going to be massively captained and suddenly you're massively behind. But if you want to captain, Bruno over Salah in that first game, that's fair enough. I think that's going to be a fair split. But like Dan already said, you can captain Antonio like 3 times. I know Paul was saying about he wants to captain a Man City player against Arsenal. But if you look at that day, West Ham are playing Palace, so having Antonio for that, as long as his hamstrings are still not turned into biscuits, he's going to be all right. So it's taking little punts like that where you think, actually, there's a big upside here. There's a potential downside, but there's a big upside. It's just trying to, do the right thing there. I often go too much though and start punting too much. And for every Johnny Evans, there's like a Mane captain it's more FPL, but when he got that 1 point injury, triple captain and all that business, you need to make sure that you come out on the positive side a bit more than you come out on the negative side.
You're choosing your battles a lot of the time, as you say, and there's definitely opportunities to be different, but there was a couple at the start of last year, where people were putting in the chat they'd captain some, in the Sky sort of fantasy world we would class as a bit of a random, and everyone's saying fantastic, but my thoughts on that, rightly or wrongly, is if someone has got, if they've got the propensity to captain those sorts of players, they're going to do it more and more. And it's unsustainable. Or, if it was a race, a race to who had the highest points up until the overhaul, then you could do what you want and take, all the risk. But over a 38-game season with only 40 transfers, even if you spike 1 or 2, you're going to miss 12 or 13, right? So, it's this is why we kind of say to just play it safe up until the overhaul.
You're using your poker analogies now, Fergi, spiking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
spiking a set.
Spiking a set. It's more, talk about it a fair bit on kind of. I was talking about with FPL Salah Abdul this week on one of the FPL videos. About choosing your battles. There is a time to go for a risk, but it's not when Salah is playing Norwich or or Bruno's got the whatever. It's there's no point going against them then, because the upside, okay, it is high, but the downside is always equally as low or even more low, because you'll probably lose massive rank if it goes against you, where there are times where it is a bit it's a bit split. Anyway, a couple of good points in the chat, some stats. James Hyde says, what are people's thoughts on Sierralta as a 6 million enabler for Watford? So Watford kept 12 or 19 clean sheets toward the end of the season. He had 14 shots inside the box. They don't have the worst start with Villa and Brighton. I mean, he's probably not going to get much bonus, but he's got the odd attacking potential there. Paul, you're nodding. Have you heard of him? Do you like him?
I mentioned him last week. He does like a booking, likes a tackle as well. But he's definitely someone. If I was going for, if I wanted a budget enabler in defence, I like him more than his defensive partner from an attacking point of view. I'd rather pay the 0.5 to get the 6 million defender over the 5.5 there.
And Stiggy says he saw a stat today. Luke Ayling had 70 touches in the opposition area last season, also picks up tackles and passing. Yeah, Ayling was a bit of a darling at the start of season 1. He was very unlucky attacking wise, I thought. Because I owned him in a couple of games. I used to watch him an awful lot, and how he didn't, I don't think he ended up with 1 goal or assist. I don't think, but how he didn't, he was really unfortunate.
Scored that great goal. I can't remember who it was against. Then they scored a header, took his ear band out and all that. Then they VAR'd it, didn't they?
He did, yeah. He's very lucky last year. Yeah, I think Ayling will be good to get. I think he did move to centre back in a friendly yesterday, so it's just have to be careful with that. He doesn't always play, but then if he goes to centre back, it's better for him for passing, because Leeds like to knock it around, right? So
I think Strike was playing defensive midfield in terms, like, because Calvin Phillips isn't back.
Yeah,
so
okay, that makes
Calvin
sense.
Phillips comes back in, then Strike plays centre half if there is an injury there.
Okay, we had a couple more questions. Britain NY, apart from Martinez, Villa defensive assets, I think we've mentioned all those, and we've also talked about Mahrez. So Samsi asks about Mahrez. I think, appetite to risk, as Mark said, feast or famine maybe with Mahrez, but he could be that one kind of punt in your team. If your other kind of 9 or 10 are really solid, got all the captaincies covered, you can maybe afford to go for it. We've also talked about Man City. Fantasy football face-off. Just as we move on to the rant, asks, are there any Sky FF former winners in the Norfolk area that at FFH_Fergi finds inspirational? I can't think of any off the top of my head, but as we're talking about that, let's move on to Dan's rant. And Dan, what's upset you this week?
You have upset me. Although the rant's not on here anymore, it's just going to be on my own podcast, so you need to tune into that.
Oh, is that
now you annoyed me? Anyway, before I go to the bad, right? Just want to say, Mark Edworthy, he's a top guy. You could say inspirational. He did start the Sky podcast, and he used to have me on. So this is partly his fault that I do this now. But when he used to do it, I used to have to record it on my phone in a car. I didn't have this sort of converted garage or anything like that. So what he had to put up with, I remember we had Joe on from a Scout, and I forgot I'd booked in a Tesco delivery. So I was sitting in the car outside the front of my house on my phone trying to do it. And I was like, oh, Jesus, Mark, my Tesco's just turned up. I had to go for like 10 minutes to do it. We're not that much more professional now, but it just seemed, but yeah, Mark, he's a top guy. Now for you, right? So I was on my Twitter, and I'm on my Twitter when I'm at work and stuff on a break. That came up. I saw Fergi. Just here's some people that have inspired and influenced me over the years. And I thought, oh, here we go. My notifications are going. I thought, oh, he's a good old boy. He's giving me a mention here. I've got a few more followers, right? And do you know what I mean? You start going through them. FF Hub Will. It's fair enough. He's your boss. You got to be, you got to kiss him up to him, ain't you? And he is nice, guys. That's fair enough. Planet FPL, I thought, come on. Then I thought, oh, hang on. 26,000 followers. You said he was a lazy shite. So I'm thinking, why is he saying? I'm joking. He said he signs on. I said, what? Anyway, so I thought, hang on. Will's got 16,000 followers. Planet's got 26. FF Scout Mark, I thought, hang on. This is in case anything goes wrong with the hub. He's keeping the door open for a job. FPL General, fair enough. He's good at FPL, and he's a nice guy. I spoke to him a few times on the old Twitter. 148,000 followers. Oh, where we go. FF Community, Holly, 54,000 followers. Oh, yeah, here we go. FPL Salah. Now, he is a good guy. Do you know what I mean? Do like Salah a lot. 40,000 followers. Laterizer. I don't even know who that is. 38,000 followers. Let's Talk. I don't know who that is. 110,000 followers. I thought, come off it. Do you know what I mean? I had Adam Hopcroft, yeah. I probably had him on the phone every other night, almost in tears. This is some quotes I can remember that come out of his mouth. He's changed. I said, yeah. He said about before yours, apparently, this is whether it's true or not, but he says you've had Botox. He says you have a bit of makeup on. You have a bit of makeup on before the show. I said, I ain't ever online early enough to see, but gets a bit of makeup. You don't know who you are anymore. Just unbelievable, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I'm just shocked. Then I thought, hang on, maybe you'll do another one when, here's some people who ain't inspired me, still nothing. I just think, you know what? Can you...
Tier 2 inspiration.
These other two, Paul and Mark, right? So they've been in a chat for about 7 years. Can you not remember Will putting in there about this Fergi? And I said, get him from that other rival thing. He's all right. Do you know what I mean? Give him a job. Don't get no thanks for that. You spend a year with me and Paul on a podcast, then you win Sun. I don't think that's a coincidence. And, let's see how it is. Dan, I am joking.
Dan, I'm visiting Wales at the end of the month. Sent Fergie where I was staying, seeing if he fancied to meet up for a pint. And then he replied, oh, that's like 3 hours on the train or something like that. So he's already trying to ding me.
No, definitely going. As you mentioned the train, and I said it's 3 hours on the train, so I'm not going to... I can get to London faster than I can get to Bilthwells in Mid Wales.
If you had 100,000 followers, he'd be there in a flash, do you know what I mean? Not a problem. He used to be able to text him. He'd text you straight back. Now, can you text me on my work phone? Oh, I see how it is. Do you know what I mean? Anyway. I am joking. No, he's a top guy, and I have. I just want some more followers. I'm thinking if he can give me a shout out to all his FPL people, that'd be great. And nothing at all.
So Steve Cheek says, did Fergie thank the cat? He has a lot of followers. And Tom Bailey, Pumpkin the Tesco cat is inspirational. And Mark Daniels said, gone Hollywood. I did notice a couple of people Hollywood. I think thought you were serious. They're like, yeah, he's changed, he's gone, he's done this, he's done that. Anyway, I get my riposte now. Can I actually explain what the whole point of the tweet was actually about? Bear in mind, Dan, if you read the article I put out on the Hub this week about, it's entitled Fantasy Football Champions. I think it calls you the best Sky player around or something. But anyway, regardless, the whole point of the tweet is that about
internet's going.
It's about 18 months ago. No, yeah, stop. I'm pretending to pause. I went full time in fantasy football, and most of those people are full time in fantasy football. And I used to do work with them and chat with them, and talk with them about all this kind of stuff. It was purely around the working in fantasy football side, as you well know. So I
was joking. I did have a few people message me saying, "I don't blame Dan. I don't blame you doing your own YouTube because he's changed and stuff." And I'm thinking, bloody hell! Actually, I'm gonna lose you some followers. I was joking.
Haven't even had the money yet. Never mind. Changed. Hello, boys.
I was joking.
Disables in the chat. Let's Luke Williams. Fergie's changed. I convinced you to get Wilson too. Yes, you did. You ruined my season, Luke, when you were on. We were doing a Friday stream and I wasn't making any transfers. And Luke was like, oh, Wilson, really good underlying stats. And I made the transfer 5 minutes before the bloody deadline and it ruined my whole bloody season. So thanks for that, Luke. But I appreciate you jumping in the chat.
Let's get that hashtag trending. Fergie's changed.
Fergie's changed. Brilliant. Thank you very much. But, no, all you guys, you all. It's like the family thing, right? It's like this whole thing. You all know you're my boys. I don't have to say on there. I don't have to put it on Twitter. All you want is bloody followers, Dan Cox. Anyway, I know I
can't get close to that cat.
I have to phone Dan every night to tell him how much you love him. Otherwise, he's out on the car threatening to do his own podcast and stuff. So anyway, okay. Anything else, Dan, or have you calmed down?
No, that's it. I was joking. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so that is it for this week. Thank you all so much as usual for support, interacting with us on this stream. Again, I've certainly got some food for thought. Hopefully it has helped everyone too. The 2021 Football Content Awards nominations are now open. If you enjoy our podcast and site content, it would be great if you could spare 2 minutes of your time. We'd very, very much appreciate it if you could nominate this podcast in the Best Fantasy Football Podcast category, and also for Fantasy Football Hub in the Best Editorial category. Luke Disable is diving on as we speak to vote for Fantasy Football Hub in all this stuff, I'm sure. The links are in the description below, and for podcast listeners, the link is footballcontentawards.com/voting. It only takes about 1 minute, and we would really, really appreciate it. If you still haven't signed up for Fantasy Football Hub as a member, what are you doing? There's a pre-season 25% discount link in the description below. Members get a copy of Ian's planner, Dan's Sky Tips each week, Dan's, Liam's and my Gameweek 1 team reveal. Ian Parron's also doing one too. We might even ask Mark if he would mind doing one too, potentially. Use of all our tools, including Opta-Stats, comparison tools, masses and masses of fantasy football content in all formats. And basically everything you could ever need to become a better fantasy football manager and win your mini leagues, as so many did in our WhatsApp chats last season. So we have premium membership also, which includes being a WhatsApp group with everyone here tonight on the podcast, including Liam, Ian, and many others. There's also 25% off this currently, so get on it. The link is in the description below. I promise you will not regret it. Phil Hurst says, Core, an hour and a half to watch back tomorrow. Absolutely. And John Maloney, what's that cat's handle on Twitter so I can go follow? I think it was Pumpkin the Tesco cat, was it, Dan?
Pumpkin Tesco cat.
Next week, we have the 2019-2020 Sky champion on. Liam Dorian is here next week for our final preseason podcast. Paul, you away next week?
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're here as well? You were away, wasn't you? Or have I just made that up?
No, I made that up.
I thought you were away. Honestly, you're not.
No, I'm all good.
There we go. Paul's here. Paul, where can we find you?
Twitter at Paul McAnulty1, MCANULTY.
Fantastic. And Dan, where can people find you?
I changed it because people can work out how old I am. I'm getting older. So it's now at Dan Cox _FFH on Twitter. And just give us a follow because my numbers are just, if I played FPL, I'd have 50,000 followers. If I got 3,000. And if you get time, please have a look at my YouTube, Sky Bite Size. Just search it for that. And that's a little 10-minute thing you can watch when you're at work or something. And if enough of you subscribe to that, I can give up work like you and just go full time.
Thank you, mate. And Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. Very, very nostalgic. I'm sure that because you used to record, didn't you, kind of in the evening, and then you'd upload it late, like 11 or 12 o'clock. And sometimes when you record, you used to wait up in bed so we got the ping for the podcast. So just so you know, I used to listen to your dulcet tones in midnight. I used to tell the missus to shut up, and I'd stick my headphones in. I'd be listening to your Sky Pod at midnight. You used to join me in the early hours. Where can we find you, Mark?
Just to check, you're saying I'm more inspirational to you than Dan, right?
That goes that kind of goes without saying, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, cool. Yes, you can find me on at Sky Podcast. I'm still waiting for someone to try and buy that Twitter handle off me for lots and lots of money. Obviously, I mean, it's going the way it's going. You never know.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I also have a FPL top 10k league that people can join. Just DM me for details on that. Yeah, and I just talk all fantasy type stuff. So yeah, it's been really good. Cheers for having me.
Superb. No, thank you, Mark. You've been really, really good to get a different view on things as well. Absolutely fantastic. My Twitter handle is at FFH_Fergi. So this podcast and video will be in the Fantasy Football Hub, Sky and TFF YouTube channel, and also available in all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watch, please click the like button. If you're still watching live and you haven't pressed like, please press like. It'd be very much appreciated. And make sure you subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast versions and leave a comment. So go on top of podcasts, leave a comment, leave 5 stars. Again, much, much appreciated if you enjoy our work. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. I see that handle is only about 70 away from 2,000 followers now, our Sky one. So we're only 70 followers away from 2,000. So make sure you follow if you don't, and feel free to ask us any questions at any time, and Dan will jump on and answer everything because he's a good egg. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you'll find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, fixture ticker, up the stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more. We'll be back at 9 p.m. next Sunday evening for our final pre-season stream with Liam Dorian, last year's champion. You won't want to miss it. Stay safe and good night all.